Over the many years of film's existence, there have been many strange characters that have tried their hands at screenwriting, with some definitely being proven to be more qualified for it than others. But it might come as a shock to some people to learn that throughout the entirety of cinema's history, there's only been one movie to ever have a United States president as a credited writer, sitting or otherwise. And I'm not talking about documentaries or an adaptation of a memoir or anything like that, but an actual fictional movie. And there will be spoilers for the movie in question ahead. So in case you'd like to see it for yourself first, you probably shouldn't proceed with this video. This will be the only spoiler warning I'll be giving you. Okay, so to start at the beginning, most would assume that since President Ronald Reagan had been an actor for 25 years before becoming a politician, that he would be the most obvious contender for the only president to have written a movie. However, in truth, Reagan only ever acted in his movies. He never wrote them. Instead, the president in question is actually Franklin D. Roosevelt. And he technically didn't even write the movie, but inspired its creation with an idea he had. And sometime in the 1930s, Roosevelt said to a magazine editor that he would like to see if there was a single movie, book, or radio writer who could answer the following question. Quote, whether it was possible for a man weary of faithless friends and a wasted life to convert a $5 million estate into cash, disappear and start anew in some worthwhile activity. And famously, a lot of writers stood up to the challenge, wanting to see if they could indeed construct a plot like the one Roosevelt had described. Now, many tried to create a story in the president's vision, but the one who came the closest was a man who wrote a novel about a millionaire who becomes disillusioned with his life, liquidates his assets, and runs away to help a small town against a corrupt union. And it was this book that was adapted into the only movie to ever credit a president as a writer, the 1936 movie The President's Mystery. However, Roosevelt was not actually involved in the writing process, and in the opening is only given a story conceived by credit. But that's still more than any other president can lay claim to when it comes to writing a movie. And for many film historians, that distinction is indeed enough to truly deem Roosevelt the only president to be involved in the writing of a movie in any way. Now, on the whole, the movie does about the best job it can of trying to answer Roosevelt's question. Following the premise of the book, the film follows a lawyer who's helped crooks get away with legally stomping on the helpless one too many times. And after coming across a beautiful woman in a small town whose factory is shut down and thus ruined because of a corrupt union bill he helped get passed, he decides to wipe the slate clean and start his life all over. Ironically inspired by Roosevelt's very question, which they actually do play in the movie, he liquidates all of his assets and stages a fake business venture to make it look as if he's lost all his money before finally faking his death in a car accident. After that, he returns to the town and helps them reopen the factory and fight against the corrupt union he had once represented. But things don't end there, however, as the man's wife is accidentally killed by her lover and is eventually recognized by his former boss, leading him to be accused of murder and for everything he had worked for in his new life to become in danger of falling apart. But going back to Roosevelt's question, the premise of this movie certainly hits all the beats all right. The man is disillusioned with his life for good reason, manages to completely legally and realistically take his millions and convert them into cash, and seemingly falls off the face of the earth both by faking bankruptcy and his own death, going on to help people of a small town make a living and stand up to the tyrants around them in a truly worthwhile cause. Now, obviously, the movie adds more to the plot than this, as I just went over, in order to make it more exciting, but in the end, it does appear to do its job of solving the president's mystery. However, the movie itself doesn't end up being all that interesting if I'm being perfectly honest. Despite the somewhat interesting plot and where it all ends up going, it really doesn't have much to offer that any other B mystery of the 1930s would, beyond the fact that it was inspired by a question from a United States president. And what also doesn't help the movie along is that in the 1950s, nearly 30 minutes of the original print was cut, reducing it from an hour and 20 minutes to just 53 minutes, and the full-length version has never been seen again. Meaning that if you were to watch the movie today, you'd only be able to watch the butchered version that is nearly incoherent and almost impossible to understand, which has done nothing to help its reputation over the years. Now, why they did this, I'm not 100% sure, but it was relatively common in the 50s, when TV was still in its infancy, for B movies to be cut down to fit shorter time slots. But generally in those cases, the original version would still be in circulation. Though it is believed that the original hour and 20-minute version of the movie does still exist, but has just never been released to the public. But even if the restored version were to ever be released, the movie would still never be hailed as a masterpiece or anything like that. Now, another question that often surrounds this movie is why Franklin Roosevelt asked that question in the first place. Some believe it came from his love of mystery stories. Others believe that he was unhappy with his life and wanted a way to live out his fantasies of escaping it all, while still others believe any number of other possibilities. But whatever the reason was, there's no doubt that it was his question being the basis for the movie that has made it a lot more notable than it probably would have been otherwise, and a classic example of the history behind a movie being much more notable and interesting than the movie itself ultimately is. Alright, I think that's everything I had to say. So now I'd like to hear what you guys think. What do you think about all of this? Were you surprised by it, or not? And do you think the final product did justice to Franklin Roosevelt's question, or not? Please let me know whatever you think in the comments below. And thank you all for watching. It is very much appreciated. And I hope to see you all next time.